Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. When you hear this, I will be walking around Omaha Beach, where 3,000 Americans lost their lives on D-Day in 1944. Of course, that also included all the other beaches and all the people lost at sea who never made it to the beaches. But Colonel Kurt probably knows more about that than I do anyway, even after I have been there. This for my second time, so I'm turning you over to the able, competent hands of Colonel Kurt Schlichter. Take it away, Colonel Kurt.
Thank you, Hugh Hewitt. This is Kurt Schlichter in the Relief Factor studio in beautiful sunny California. Who the heck am I? I am the senior columnist at townhall.com. I'm a noted Los Angeles trial lawyer. I am the author of the new book, We'll Be Back, The Fall and Rise of America, coming out from Regnery very soon. You need to go order it. We'll Be Back, The Fall and Rise of America. It is, as the hip kids say, based and lit. Based and lit. I am also a retired United States Army colonel, and I have been to Normandy, where several American divisions came ashore on June 6th, 1944, under heavy fire. And several airborne divisions dropped a little further back inland. I could spend 3 hours talking about the longest day. And there are a bunch of military guys out there going, do it, do it, do it. But I'm not going to do it today. All I can say is I'm very jealous of Hugh Hewitt and Dwayne Patterson and all the rest of their tour getting to go to those beaches. I went there with my family when I was stationed in Germany. They came out to visit me, and I went there right before I deployed to Operation Desert Storm, where I served my country as the platoon leader of a glorified car wash. But in any case, on June 6th, 1944, D-Day was the biggest story. Today, the biggest story is Elon Musk buying Twitter. There's literally no other story. Liberals are melting down. They are freaking out because the possibility of free speech terrifies them to the core of their being. Why are they so afraid of free speech? It's simple. Because their ideology is garbage and everything they believe is trash. And if people can speak freely, they will be exposed and ridiculed and banished from the public square. They will be pelted with rotting fruit and nasty names. No one will ever love them. Everyone from Elizabeth Warren, that fake Indian, to that malicious little goblin Robert Reich. And I wish I had said it. Robert Reich's on there going, it's terrible that this billionaire is going to control Twitter because he's going to allow people to speak freely. And somebody on Twitter, and I wish it was me, said, are you afraid that he's going to put in place a height restriction? It's funny because Robert Reich is really, really short. Okay, let's go down the line on stupid. But first, I want to give you the phone number, 800-520-1234. That's 800-520-1234. I want to hear what you have to say about Elon Musk buying Twitter. Oh, by the way, ka-ching, Kurt's a shareholder, getting a premium. Baby, what am I going to do with the approximately $500 this deal means to me? I don't know. Okay? Hookers and blow? No. That's not how the Kurt rolls. I'm not Madison Crawthorne. Just a joke. Gosh, lighten up, people. It's called free speech for a reason. It's only free because you're not paying for it. No. That's not how free speech works. My favorite thing is when they hate free speech, they're like, you're allowed to have free speech. You just can't have speech without consequences. All right. Let me explain how this works. Wait. Let me show you the confusion of our folks. Let's get Raggedy Janny Psaki and what she and her expression of concern about people being able to speak freely. That's cut number 2.
Do you have a response to that? And does the White House have any concern that this new agreement might have President Trump back on the platform?
Well, I'm not going to comment on a specific transaction. What I can tell you as a general matter, no matter who owns or runs Twitter, the president has long been concerned about the power of large social media platforms, the power they have over our everyday lives, has long argued that tech platforms must be held accountable for the harms they cause. He has been a strong supporter of fundamental reforms to achieve that goal, including reforms to Section 230, enacting antitrust reforms, requiring more transparency, and more. And he's encouraged that there's bipartisan interest in Congress. In terms of what hypothetical policies might happen, I'm just not going to speak to that at this point in time.
He's concerned that people may be able to speak freely. I'd be concerned, too, if my ideology was a bubbling cauldron of sewage. Let's hear what Allison Camerata of CNN, not CNN Plus, which has, well, that's been Roe v. Wade out of existence. But CNN, normal CNN, which is also a total failure. Let's see what Allison Camerata has to say. Cut number 5.
So he is approaching this in the same way he approaches Tesla and SpaceX. He's on a mission. He wants to save the digital planet, and in his mind, Twitter is critical to that.
Except that we're all more affected by this than we are SpaceX and Tesla. This affects all of us in terms of misinformation. How will this change our lives? And when he says open it up to free speech, does that allow more misinformation on the platform?
I think we're going to have to see what he does and exactly what rules he decides to follow or not follow. There are obviously local and state and federal laws all around the world that apply to these platforms. He's going to have to follow at least some of those rules, I would expect. So I think it remains to be seen.
Okay, that other voice you heard was Brian Stelter, who is a potato. Okay, now I'm just a simple Los Angeles trial lawyer with a little bit of knowledge about constitutional law and stuff like that. And I've got to say that that 42 seconds made me considerably dumber. All right. Now, Brian Stelter, who is a potato, sounding off on, free speech is like Brian Stelter sounding off on sit-ups. All right. It is not. No, it's not working for me, okay? Here's the thing. You have the right to say whatever you want. And if somebody doesn't like it, they don't get to shut you up by calling it hate speech or misinformation. Now, they tried to. They tried so hard. They worked at it, and they thought they had it. And then Elon Musk came along and said, you banned my favorite site, which was Babylon Bee. So I'm going to buy your garbage website, and I'm going to allow everybody to say what they want, including stuff that makes liberals mad. Cut number 6, Ari Melber on MSNBC.
You own all of Twitter or Facebook or what have you. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't even have to be transparent. You could secretly ban one party's candidate or all of its candidates, all of its nominees, or you could just secretly turn down the reach of their stuff and turn up the reach of something else, and the rest of us might not even find out about it till after the election. Elon Musk says this is all to help people because he is just a free speech, philosophically clear, open-minded helper.
Yeah, it'd be terrible if you took opposing politicians and cut off their ability to speak to people. That'd be rotten. I'd really hate that. That'd be terrible. It would be, oh my gosh. Wouldn't want that to happen. Wouldn't want to shadow ban people. Wouldn't want to fiddle with the algorithm to shut others up. Wouldn't want to prevent, news stories about the corrupt, drug-addicted, stripper-philic son of the alleged president, that senile old weirdo Grandpa Badfinger. Wouldn't want to just ban any mention of his, massive foreign corruption. You look at somebody like Ari Melber on MSNBC, and of course you won't, because literally no one does. And you just kind of wonder, are you stupid? Or do you think we're stupid? 800-520-1234. That's the number to reach me in the Relief Factor studio here in beautiful Southern California. We're talking about Twitter right now because there's nothing else to talk about. 800-520-1234. I am guest host Kurt Schlichter, and I am kicking it old school here while Hugh Hewitt gallivants around the sacred ground that is Normandy, Omaha Beach, Utah Beach, St. Mary Église. Ugh. That's back when men were men instead of gender non-binary weirdos. God bless America. Stick around. We are back on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. I am guest host Kurt Schlichter, senior columnist at townhall.com, noted Los Angeles trial lawyer. I'm the author of the new book, We'll Be Back, The Fall and Rise of America. I'm also a retired United States Army colonel, and I'm joined by retired Navy Captain Jerry Hendrix, who helped me out with a chapter of We'll Be Back, The Fall and Rise of America, the chapter on China. How are you, Captain Hendrix?
I'm very good, although I object to you using the village people in the Navy as a lead intro for me to appear with you.
You object?
Object.
It's a fun science. It's about patriotism. It's about being a sailor. It's about camaraderie. It's about the bond that seamen share between each other. I think, okay, anyway, I just want to note that there's no song by the Village People called In the Army. In any case, Jerry, I think I think this war in Ukraine between Russia and Ukraine has taught us some lessons that we've actually already learned. If you go from the 1967 sinking of the Israeli destroyer Elon, the 82 sinking of the Sheffield from the British Navy, Royal Navy, the sinking of the Moskva by missiles, it struck a lot of people as revolutionary, but I think the age of missiles in naval warfare is kind of baked into the cake by now. What do you think?
Well, I think it's very clear, and mind you, we took the lead on this. Coming out of World War II, we made a lot of investments in the U.S. Navy in guided missiles, and then that led to precision-guided missiles and so on, because you could see that there was going to be an asymmetric advantage of missiles because of their range and their lethality. I mean, the one thing that we can learn here from the Moskva, here we have a very large, 12,500-ton displacement heavy cruiser that has effectively been taken out by two missiles, so anti-ship cruise missiles that came in at wave-top heights, penetrated the ships, directly amidships, right near its fuel and ammunition stores, not to mention crew berthing, and effectively took that ship out. It capsized and sank, a few hours later. So definitely seems that missiles have an advantage, and it's something that we have to, be very conscious of. The U.S. Navy has made a lot of investments in missile defense for its ships, but surface ships do have more exposure, shall we say, to this type of threat going forward.
Jerry Hendrix, for those of us who are not well versed in naval armature, and of course understanding that there are some things retired Navy and Army guys just don't talk about on the air, what kind of defenses do our ships have to missile attack?
Well, I mean, the one thing about it is we have to defend against essentially three different types of profiles now. So this anti-ship cruise missile came in, as I said, at wave-top height, which means it's trying to fly in below the radar horizon because you could only see really about 13 miles around you until you hit the curvature of the Earth, and at that point in time, you lose it. So you have to be very focused on that. That takes a different type of radar system, a different type of wavelength that you're looking at that profile. Then you have to be concerned about sort of the semi-ballistic missile that's coming in at about a 45-degree angle. And then today, because of the Chinese investments in anti-ship ballistic missiles, you have to be looking nearly vertically up in the Chinese theater as you start looking at DF-21s and 26s. So you have to have a radar that essentially scans from the surface of the ocean all the way directly vertically above you, and you have to be able to adjust that radar to look at the different speed profiles. Then you have to then arrange your defenses, everything from close-in weapon systems that are looking, with 2 miles and in, outward to missiles that can reach hundreds of miles out. And so it becomes a very complicated decision on how am I going to arm my ship. It's almost thinking about multi-caliber guns, but in this case you're thinking almost of multi-range missiles. So it's a very dynamic environment. It's very hard to keep up with, which is one of the reasons why the U.S. Navy has begun to invest more and more into its submarines, because that's an area where we have a real strategic and asymmetric advantage. And so we may see us put more of our lethality under the water.
Well, isn't one of the big problems, Captain Jerry Hendrix, today it's hard to track submarines. What happens if there's a technological advance or some sort of cyber advance that allows an enemy to break into our systems and figure out where our submarines are? That could be kind of scary.
It would be scary because essentially it would render the oceans, transparent, which we definitely fear. It would also mean that the oceans become no man's land. So if no longer the undersea environment is available to us to operate, then effectively we're back in sort of a salvo competition where I'm building missiles on my land bases, which cannot be sunk. And my challenger opponent, the Chinese, are building their missiles on their mainland, which cannot be sunk, and we're just trying to dominate from those land. That's an environment that's a type of warfare that others have written about in the past. It's kind of hard to contemplate because that would not allow us then to come to the aid of our allies and partners in the region like Japan or the Philippines or Taiwan. And so that's not an area where we want to go. We want to make sure that we strengthen our ships and our Navy in order to operate freely. I mean, that's what the United States was founded on. The idea of operating freely on the free seas is part and parcel of our Constitution and founding documents.
Well, Captain Jerry Hendrix, and you are the author of To Provide and Maintain a Navy, which I highly recommend, and Hugh Hewitt highly recommends as well, for people who want to understand the importance of sea power. Now, my recently departed father was a Navy lieutenant commander. My two grandparents were both naval officers. I, of course, am the green sheep who wasn't, but I do appreciate the Navy. I appreciate naval tradition, which, unlike the British, is not necessarily rum sodomy in the lash. One of the edges we had over the Chinese is our ability at conducting mass naval operations, coordinating naval operations. We had that legacy from World War II. We had that legacy from operating at a great distance from the United States for years and years and years. And that's an important edge. But it's not necessarily a decisive one. If you look back in history, of course, the Carthaginians were a seagoing people. Romans were not. Romans taught themselves how to be a sea people and eventually fought the Carthaginians to a standstill. In our culture, naval culture right now, we've seen problems with the Bonhomme Richard, where sailors were simply not properly trained on fighting fires on ship, and we lost a pocket carrier as a result of that. Are you worried that our naval tradition and the expertise that we've traditionally cultivated is being lost, and that could be decisive in the next war?
So I am worried about that, and you see the things like the 2017 we had the collisions,
yes.
3 collisions and 1 grounding, resulting in the deaths of American sailors in 2017. Then we had the Bonhomme Richard incident where we lost a light amphibious carrier at the pier. And so that's raised a number of concerns about the basic nature of our training and readiness. Are we making sure that we train our crews from everything from firefighting and basic shipboard repair to some of these advanced things like detect to engage sequences, that if I pick up a missile coming in at wave top height, do I have the crew ready at all times to be able to defend the ship? The U.S. Navy used to have a phrase, or probably still has the phrase, but whether we practice it or not is the question, of doing the basics with brilliance. That's really our challenge on a day-to-day basis, is to go to the sea, and fight our ship and keep the ship afloat. The sea is an unforgiving environment, and we all say that, but most people, until you've been at sea in Sea State 5 conditions, and you've got, gray water breaking over your bow, every other minute from these long rollers coming in, and you're in storm conditions, you don't understand just how fragile a ship can seem in the midst of a vast ocean. And I am concerned that we've sort of stepped back from that. Now, we're making a lot of investments in training and readiness now. The Chief of Naval Operations is making arguments right now that he would rather have a more ready fleet than a larger fleet. I would like to have both, so I think that we need to be ready to spend more. But I do have concerns getting ready, getting our game face on for what I think is almost assuredly some sort of a military conflict with China in the near term. And I'm thinking inside the next 5 years over Taiwan, and whether we're going to be ready to go.
Captain Jerry Hendrix, author of To Provide and Maintain a Navy, also a editor. He helped me out with the chapter on China of We'll Be Back, The Fall and Rise of America. Jerry, the Chief of Naval Operations could do a lot worse than having your phone number on speed dial. If the CNO called you up and said, Jerry, I need help, we got to get the Navy ready, what are some concrete actions that you, as someone who led sailors face-to-face for years, would recommend right now that we can do?
Well, I mean, I'd make the investments in your basic training, starting back at Great Lakes Naval Training Station and getting into doing a more advanced damage control there at Great Lakes with your basic sailors coming in, making sure that they're aware of those things. I would do everything from there to trying to get our fleet to be larger. The one thing about it is we're never going to be able to fill the readiness hole in our fleet until we actually have a much larger fleet. And so, if it means going to Congress and saying, we need an additional $25 billion a year in order to grow the fleet, we need 5% growth year over year from this day going forward, then we need to be able to say that honestly to the Congress.
Well, thank you, Captain Hendrix, author of To Provide and Maintain a Navy. He's a serious guy because the first thing he says, folks, is not buy me more equipment. It's train our sailors. This is the Hugh Hewitt radio program. I'm guest host, retired Colonel Kurt Schlichter. Stick around, Kurt. Thank you, Hugh Hewitt. I am Kurt Schlichter, and I do know a bit about D-Day. I'm a retired United States Army Colonel, graduate of the United States Army War College, which is the party war college. It's the Chico State of War Colleges. But I am a graduate nonetheless, and boy, are they proud. I'm a noted Los Angeles trial lawyer. I'm the senior columnist at townhall.com. I am the author of the outstanding forthcoming book from Regnery. It's nonfiction. We'll Be Back, The Fall and Rise of America. That's We'll Be Back, The Fall and Rise of America. I'm not saying too much when I list the greatest books in all of human history. The Bible, the works of Shakespeare, and We'll Be Back, The Fall and Rise of America. Get it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever you pre-order fine books. I'm joined by one of my favorite guests when I guest host for the great Hugh Hewitt, Byron York of the Washington Examiner. He's the chief political consultant. He's a Fox News contributor as well. Byron, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt radio program.
Good morning, Kurt. Thanks for having me.
Can you tell I've had a little bit of coffee?
No kidding. Well, you said that Drucker was one of your favorite guests too, so I think you tell that to everybody.
Not everybody, just you guys. Just you two. Look, I can have two favorites.
All right.
But Byron, you may or may not know it, but there's a big story out there about Twitter. You probably haven't heard. Elon Musk is buying it, and he promises to bring back free speech. But I think the real story here is our ruling class, and as a graduate of the University of California, San Diego, of course, I think of everything in terms of class. Herbert Marcuse was a professor there. Our ruling class has essentially abandoned the idea of free speech, and I find that unbelievably disturbing.
Well, I think that you are seeing some, freak out because they were happy. There were some people who were quite happy with the censorship and information suppression that was going on at Twitter. So they're going to be unhappy. There'll be some people who make kind of a show of exiting Twitter. Of course, there were some conservatives who left Twitter over that censorship. and suppression. I think what we need to begin with is a full and complete comprehensive audit of the censorship and of the suppression that has taken place at Twitter. We all know what Twitter did with the Hunter Biden story. We know that they put that they basically, squashed the story. They froze the New York Post's account until it would remove any reference to the story. We know big things like that. We know they threw President Trump off Twitter. But how many times have you heard somebody say, "Well, there's somebody I follow on Twitter who's disappeared. His account has been frozen either for a day or it's been suspended indefinitely. They've been thrown off Twitter. Why did that happen?" We need an audit, really, of how much this has happened. And they can also, short of suspending anybody, they can reduce the exposure of their tweets, reduce the audience of their tweets, and they can do all this for ideological reasons. And the first thing we need to know, I think, is how much of this they have been doing. I think we'll be shocked when we find out.
Well, Byron York of the Washington Examiner, I think an accounting is important, but the premise of an accounting is that once it's revealed, the perpetrators would be embarrassed by a public revelation of what they've done. I don't think they will be. I saw Barack Obama get up and start talking about the importance of suppressing misinformation. I saw would-be President Hillary Clinton tweet essentially the same thing. We need to stamp out misinformation. You got Robert Reich. You got a bunch of blue checks on Twitter. You have a bunch of people who do not believe in the concept of free speech. And these are people running either parts of our government or huge institutions. I find it terrifying.
Yeah, I think Reich said he was going to be one of those who leaves Twitter, but I think you're absolutely right to bring up the Obama speech. Obama gave a speech last week at Stanford in Silicon Valley, part of the tech industry, and it's basically his case for censorship, his case for the suppression of information. And it was interesting, actually, because I think you and I had this conversation. I talk about how much better our media situation is today than a generation or two ago when there were just 3 news networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, and they only read 2 newspapers, and that was how most people got their information. And all 3 of them were within a few blocks of each other in Midtown Manhattan. And so their voice came through in the voice of Walter Cronkite, and that's kind of all that everybody knew. And now we have this incredible multiplicity of sources, of voices, of opinions, of primary original documents to see. It's just incredibly better than it is today. And Obama thought exactly the opposite.
Yes.
He talked in nostalgic terms about the good old days when there were only 3 news networks, and we listened to Walter Cronkite or we listened to David Brinkley, and we all shared the same set of facts. And remember how that blew up during the, I think it was in 2004, with the Dan Rather scandal. And the striking thing about Dan Rather, he had shown briefly these documents that he said that George Bush was AWOL at the Texas National Guard. And, it showed these little flashes of documents, but it looked kind of authoritative, but you didn't know. Well, we found out that these documents were fake, and CBS knew it could not verify them. And we learned all that through the Internet. And 20 years earlier, Rather would have gotten away with it completely. And so we were in a new era, in a better era, and Obama and people who agree with him is looking back to that old time when there were few sources of information, when there was a fairness doctrine, when there was all sorts of suppression of information. They like that, but we're in a new time, and I really think there's no going back.
Well, Byron York, I think it's interesting that Dan Rather actually appears on, allegedly legitimate news outlets. I mean, you would think that he would be driven away in shame, but they're not ashamed because they agree with what he did. They want censorship. They like it. There's a huge danger there. I think Disney found it out about changing the rules and the norms and not realizing that the status quo doesn't stay the status quo when you change what you do. Your other guy, the other side does it. If we're going to censor, well, I'll step up and I'll make some decisions. We need to ban Marxism. We need to ban CRT. We need to ban lies about the climate hoax. I've got a whole list of things that I think are lies. And if we're going to ban lies, why don't we ban the stuff I think are lies? And let's fight about it. Is that going to be the rule? I don't think these people understand that when that society is not a Jenga tower. Okay, you can't pull all the little blocks out without the whole thing coming down.
Yeah. Now there is. I mean, the other. So I really think we need this audit in the sense that we don't know a lot of the things that they've done. We know some of it, and obviously to address your point, you do the audit as the foundation of reforming the place, of stopping the censorship, of stopping the suppression, the politically motivated suppression. Now, you will get an argument, and it's true. Global social media platforms have to curate their content. They have to police their content. I mean, how many times have we seen somebody who walks into a store or a bar and shoots up the place? You find that they've been basically saying what they were going to do on social media before they did it.
And the FBI inevitably knows them because it's a super competent agency.
And there are things that many of our listeners and me too probably don't think about. There are all sorts of conflicts in the world, like the Kashmir region with India and Pakistan, and they can use social media to plan violence or foment all sorts of dissent there. There are things that social media companies have to police, but the actual suppression of pure political speech in the United States is something that has to be stopped.
Thank you, Byron York, chief political correspondent at the Washington Examiner, Fox News contributor, and weekly stalwart here at the Hugh Hewitt radio program. I'm guest host Kurt Schlichter. Stick around. We got a lot more to cover. United States Army Colonel Kurt Schlichter. The greatest honor in my life was leading American soldiers. And Hugh, I'm jealous of you for gallivanting around the beaches at Normandy, Omaha, Utah, Gold Sword, Juneau, St. Mary Glees, where the airborne dropped in. Of course, I am airborne qualified. I am a 5-jump chump. But I'm so proud of our military legacy. And I'm proud to have one of the great supporters of our military with me, Senator Marsha Blackburn from the great state of Tennessee, who's now senator for most of my friends, formerly Californians. Senator Blackburn, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt program.
I am delighted to join you. Thank you so much for having me on this morning.
Well, thank you very much for being here, Senator Blackburn. I want to just take a moment with Hugh mentioning Omaha Beach. Of course, a National Guard division stormed ashore the 29th, right next to the 1st Infantry Division, Omaha Beach, and fought their way up onto the heights at great loss. Just 2 days ago, America lost a soldier, Specialist Bishop Evans of the Texas Army National Guard. He drowned trying to rescue illegal aliens crossing the border. Those people should have never been there. He didn't hesitate, Senator Blackburn. He didn't wait. He saw people in need, and he went to help them. He shows the same courage and compassion that I was honored to see every single day I led American soldiers. And I got to say, I'm furious. I am furious.
Well, and so many Tennesseans that I talk to have said, look at this. Building the wall, securing that border is something that needs to be done and should have been done and would have been completed if Donald Trump had remained president, because We know that under the Trump presidency, he made it a priority to secure that border, thereby securing the sovereignty of this nation, knowing who was coming into this nation, thwarting the drug dealers. And now what do we see is that with this border open, with this conversation about Title 42 and ending Title 42, what do you have? You have the cartels out running all across the globe, setting up global operations. And this is something that the American people are saying, hey, wait a minute, I want to know who's coming in this country. We need to do something about this. And it's not just putting out the y'all come sign and saying everybody welcome.
Well, Senator Marsha Blackburn of the great state of Tennessee, this isn't just an inconvenience. This isn't just an insult. This isn't just money being spent on people who, frankly, don't belong in the United States. This is dead Americans. Leaving, specialist Bishop Evans died. Many illegal aliens themselves have died. And tens of thousands of Americans have died from opioid overdoses, from drugs walked across the border. We have a 50-50 Senate right now. We do not hold the presidency. What can we do as Republicans from that position? And I hope we take the Senate in November. But right now, what can we do to fight this open border policy?
The best thing that we can do right now is to make certain that, first of all, people are contacting their local, state, and federal elected officials. And the reason that is important is because right now, with all of the drug dealers, the cartels, the human traffickers, the gangs, what you have is a situation where every town's a border town and every state is a border state. And when your local and state officials are putting pressure on Democrat members of Congress and on this administration, it will help us to keep Title 42 in place. It will show that the American people are tired of this. They do not want individuals illegally coming into this country. Bear in mind, last year, we had individuals from 160 different countries cross that border. This shows you how you've got the cartels working globally. We had people, about 40 people, whose names are on the terrorist watch list, apprehended at that border. Now, what makes this of concern is the fact that this is out of the 2 million people that were apprehended. You also have hundreds of thousands, a minimum of 600,000 gotaways. These are people that they saw on surveillance but could not capture. Now, out of those, how many are bringing drugs to the streets of your community? How many are pushing gang members into communities across this country to elevate crime? How many of these are human traffickers who are subjecting women and girls to drugs, to addiction, and then moving them into sex trafficking rings around this country? So this is the scope of the problem, and people need to be reaching out and saying, stop it. This makes our communities less safe. Stop it. These drug dealers are preying on our children.
Senator Marsha Blackburn, you represent the great city of Nashville, home of country music, and that makes that's one of the reasons why you are one of the senatorial experts on intellectual property, copyright, and the like. Disney, which is famously in a fight with conservatives, a fight it picked by essentially telling us that it was trying to make, schools safe for people to chat up little kids about things that shouldn't be chatted up. Disney is looking to extend copyrights once again when they start expiring in January of 2024. What do you think of extending copyrights further? And should we be giving that kind of break to companies like Disney that, frankly, have declared cultural war on normal Americans?
I give a lot of props to the Florida legislature and to Governor Ron DeSantis because they said, hey, we're not going to put up with this. The bill that they passed and that the governor signed was a bill that said, parents, you're in charge, and you have a right to know what it is that your child is being taught. And when Disney tried to reposition and remessage that and object to that, they stood up against them. They had the right to take away that special taxing jurisdiction that is there. Disney needs to abide by the laws when it comes to intellectual property and copyright. They need to abide by those. The U.S. government does quite a bit of work to protect the Disney copyrights because you have the Chinese Communist Party that is trying to exploit those, and Disney should be grateful that the U.S. Patent and Copyright Office is there to protect against trademark infringements.
Senator Marsha Blackburn, in a bigger picture, we're seeing pushback by conservatives against woke corporations. Woke corporations have used their cultural, economic, and political power against us, and you have Ron DeSantis pushing back with political power. We have about 15 seconds. What do you think? How do you think Republicans should relate to corporations in the future? Are we going to go back to the kind of old deference to corporations, or are we going to have a new relationship?
One of the things I believe is going to be a push in the future is people are going to want to see corporations play by the rules and abide by the law and not move into trying to politicize this or politicize that. Well,
I appreciated Senator Marsha Blackburn of the great state of Tennessee, one of my favorite guests when I guest host here at the Hugh Hewitt radio program. I'm Kurt Schlichter. We're going to be right back with more. You know that it's guest host Kurt Schlichter on the Hugh Hewitt radio program when you hear the early 80s alternative bumper music. That is Simple Minds up on the catwalk from their epic album, Sparkle in the Rain. I just get chills rocking out to it. I am senior columnist at townhall.com, a noted Los Angeles trial lawyer. I'm the author of the upcoming book, We'll Be Back, The Fall and Rise of America, which you should immediately go out and pre-order. I'm also a retired United States Army colonel, and that's going to lead into my first question to my next guest, Senator Rick Scott from the great state of Florida and a veteran of the United States Navy. Welcome, Senator Scott.
It's great to be with you. By the way, I was just meeting a lot of military over in Ukraine. Over in Ramstein, over in Germany, and in Lithuania just last week. And so, a lot of Army over in right now over in Lithuania. A great group of people.
Well, before I get on to the 2022 senatorial races, and I know our listeners want to talk about that. As a veteran yourself, I think you've got to be as angry and heartbroken as I am over the death of Specialist Bishop Evans of the Texas Army National Guard, who gave his life trying to rescue illegal aliens who should not have been there.
Oh, no, it makes you mad.
Oh, my God. I'm furious. I'm so angry.
Here's the way I look at it. If when you joined the service, okay, you went to defend this country, to defend our Constitution. Why would our commander-in-chief put our armed service at risk, whether it's on our border, which we didn't have to do, or with the stupid withdrawal from Afghanistan, which we didn't have to do that way, where we lost 13 people? No, it makes you mad because you expect your commander-in-chief to act responsibly.
Well,
and not put you in harm's way.
Well, Senator Scott, I had the honor of for a short time representing one of the families of the 13 American service members killed for no good reason in Afghanistan. Right. And I've got to say, the way this administration is squandering the lives of our soldiers, I'm so angry. My finger has to hover over the dump button, because I'm going to burst into my infantry mode. It's outrageous. Is there anything we can do with a 50-50 Senate, no control of the executive branch? Is there anything we can do to stop this disaster right now?
Everybody needs to start showing up to the offices of every senator and every congressman and woman, okay, in this country, and demanding a change. You have to say, one, we are going to have a secure border. We don't need to have to send our National Guard troops down there to do it. Our Border Patrol can do it if you give them the resources and you let them do their job. Right? We're not going to do stupid withdrawals from Afghanistan. And by the way, now think about what we're doing. We wouldn't give Ukraine all the support they needed, and now we're spending billions of dollars to try to get them to, help them beat Russia. Why didn't we give them all the support in the beginning? And why would our commander-in-chief say, "Oh, well, we're not going to send troops in"? No, you don't tell the other side what you're going to do. You say, "I am going to kick your butt somehow," and let them figure, "Oh man, maybe that the most lethal military in the world, maybe they would hurt me." And so stop telling people what you're not going to do, and stop telling the military they need to become woke like these stupid corporations are doing right now.
Well, you're absolutely right, Senator Scott. And let me make a suggestion to you that working with a couple of our great senators, Republican senators from the state of Texas, I think a lot of Americans would love to see some sort of resolution honoring the sacrifice of Specialist Bishop Evans, because that is the kind of courage and compassion I saw every day. I know you saw every day serving with our young soldiers. I'm believe it or not, for L.A. trial lawyer, I'm almost speechless. I'm so angry about that. Yet I'm also so in awe and honored that we have young Americans like Specialist Bishop Evans who reject this woke nonsense and go out and get the job done no matter what we ask them.
So, Kurt, I was in Lithuania, close to the border with Russia. Okay, we have the army, the American army, sitting there, saying we're going to defend our NATO ally. I mean, I had the opportunity to go. They showed me everything in the tank that they drove. They showed me everything in the missile launcher they drove. These individuals are so dedicated to freedom and liberty and our Constitution. So we need to be responsible for their lives. We need to be careful with their lives. I mean, so it makes you mad.
No, these are real people to us, Senator Scott. You worked with them.
I've got a 10-year-old grandson. He's going to be in the military. I know he is.
Yeah, the thing, and I'm not running down those who didn't serve, but we had the opportunities to see him up close, and I just want to report that with the kind of courage you saw from Specialist Bishop Evans, that's not the exception. That's the rules for our people. Look, I'm not maudlin. I'm not sentimental. I'm a trial lawyer. I'm an infantryman. But the fact is, American service members are the greatest people I've ever been around. The greatest honor of my life was holding a commission to lead them. And the way that they're being abused by this administration is it's simply outrageous.
They don't. I mean, I don't get it. We have to be thankful every day. We have men and women that are willing to put on the uniform, say, I'm going to give up my rights to make sure I defend your freedom, because I decide I will be either, whether you're enlisted or an officer, you're saying I'm going to follow the Constitution and follow the commander-in-chief. That's what my job is, right? And that's what they do. They go out, they go overseas often, or they go to the border and say, I'm going to do my job, period. And it makes you mad that we just can't squander a life, one life. I mean, I listened to my dad. My dad did all the combat jumps. One of 3,000 Americans that did all the combat jumps for the 82nd Airborne in the Second World War.
Hua?
He never believed he'd come back alive. Today, you can go to war and come back alive because we have the equipment, we have the know-how, we have the technology to really keep our men and women safe. Do it. Don't put them in harm's way when you don't have to.
Well, Senator Rick Scott, let's move on to a happier subject. What we're going to be able to do about this, because I think we're taking back the Senate in November. Can you give the Hugh Hewitt radio program audience a preview of how you think next November is going to go?
Here's where we are. We should be able to defend all. We have 21 Republicans up. We should be able to defend all those. Now, some of them are going to be harder. We've got to defend Pennsylvania. We've got to defend North Carolina. We've got to defend probably the hardest of an incumbent is Ron Johnson's in Wisconsin. But if you look at the quality of our candidates in the primaries, we got a lot of primaries that will come up in the next 30 days. We got great people in our primaries. We've got great incumbents running. So we just have to bust our butt every day. That's how you win races. I'm in a 50-50 state. You work every day, and gosh, you have success. Now, where we have our pickup opportunities is one in Georgia. Warnick is the Doug Jones of this cycle. He votes 100% with Biden, Schumer, and Bernie Sanders. And so we've got three good people in the primary. One of them's going to win. Right now, Herschel Walker's way ahead. We should be able to win there if we run a good race. New Hampshire. Maggie Hassan is unpopular. She's known because she was the governor before. She only won by 1,000 votes 5 years ago. She's been pouring money in to move up her and ads to move up her approval ratings. It hasn't worked. We got quite a few people in the race now because they say, oh, gosh, I can become a U.S. Senator from New Hampshire. So we should be able to win there. Arizona, Mark Kelly is a poster child for, hey, would you vote for Biden, open border Biden in Arizona? No, that's who Mark Kelly is. We have an ad up right now in both English and Spanish that we're attacking him on his border crisis. We got four good people in the race there. One of them is going to get out of the race. That primary is a little bit later. Nevada, Cortez Masto is behind Adam Laxalt. Adam's got a primary against Sam Brown, but right now he's in the lead. All the sort of reports out there say that Cortez Masto, the Democrat, is the most endangered incumbent this cycle. And then she is because she's way down against Adam Laxalt right now in a general election poll. So those are the four. Now we got some other states that it looks like we have great candidates. We have a shot. Biden's numbers are bad. In Colorado, in the state of Washington, Tiffany Smiley's running. We've got 2 or 3 good candidates running in Connecticut against Blumenthal. So there's some sleeper races out here that we could also do well in.
Well, Senator Rick Scott, I know you don't take positions in primaries, nor should you. Your job is to win the generals. And I'm not going to name a particular state, but in some states there may be people who, carry a lot of baggage. How do you, to the extent you address that, how do you address candidates that, have every right to run, but maybe carrying a millstone around their neck that other people aren't?
The one primary candidate that people are worried about is Eric Greitens in Missouri, right? Eric Greitens is the governor that resigned. He's been accused of domestic abuse by his spouse, his ex-wife. So some people think he can't win a general election. My approach is I believe the voters will make a good choice. We've got 3 good people besides that in the race. We've got Vicky Hartzer, we got Eric Smith, we got Billy Long in the race. I believe the Missouri voters are going to pick somebody that can win the general election. But I'm not going to get involved in the race. If it's whoever it is, we're going to help them win their general election.
Really quick, Senator Rick Scott, when a number of Republicans run, one of them wins the primary, the others lose, and there may be some bad blood. How do you?
You feel sorry for people.
Yeah. How do you convince some of the people who didn't win this round that they need to get in there and back the winner 110%, even if maybe they've got a little residual anger? We got about 10 seconds.
You go in, you go talk to everybody and say, this is for the betterment of the country. So I'm going to talk to all the people that lose. My heart will go out to them, but I'm going to say we got to be in this together to win in November.
Thank you so much, Florida Senator Rick Scott, a great favorite when I'm a guest host here on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. I'm Kurt Schlichter, coming back with J.D. Vance. This is the Hugh Hewitt radio program. I'm Kurt Schlichter. We're trying to get Ohio Senate candidate J.D. Vance in here. I, like Hugh Hewitt himself, am a native son of the Buckeye State. I was born in Cincinnati, and Ohio's Ohio's full of genuine, open, honest, wonderful people. I was told I had to go to California by popular demand. We're joined by Senate candidate from this great state of Ohio, J.D. Vance, a United States Marine. J.D., welcome to the Hugh Hewitt radio program.
Thanks for having me, man. Good to have you. Good to be with you.
Well, thank you. I want to get to something that's been driving me up the wall. As another member of our armed forces, you served as an enlisted Marine. You know the courage and the compassion and the just how great our young warriors are. And the death of Specialist Bishop Evans on the border, a member of the Texas National Guard, who was sent down there to defend our borders and the state of Texas. He saw illegal aliens in trouble. He went into the water to save them, and he lost his life. JD, I am furious over this waste of this great life. But also, I'm intensely proud of this American warrior.
Yeah, absolutely, Kurt. It reminds me of something that I once heard the commander of the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit say about the Marines that he lost in Iraq, that they were the smartest, the kindest, the best looking, and the most compassionate. And I think about that a lot whenever we lose a soldier or Marine. And look, at the end of the day, the reason I'm so angry about this, Kurt, is because this is an unnecessary loss of life.
Yes.
It's one thing to fight a battle that we have to fight, and of course you're going to lose good people when you do it. It's another thing to have a flood of illegal aliens coming across the border where Joe Biden has encouraged this to happen. He has actively encouraged this, and of course people are going to get killed. People are getting killed here in Ohio. The brave specialist got killed trying to help out illegal aliens. Again, it shows the compassion of our people. But why is Joe Biden letting this happen? Why is he encouraging it to happen? And importantly, Kurt, why did it take him days to acknowledge that his policies killed a young soldier? This is just so disgusting what this guy is doing. And again, it is a predictable and unnecessary consequence of what he's doing. Well,
I know my staff here, J.D. Vance, have their fingers hovering over the dump button because I'm that angry. To squander American lives is unforgivable. It's not just Specialist Bishop Evans, and it's not just the illegal aliens themselves who are called to come across the border. Many of them die. Many others are abused sexually or otherwise. It's also tens of thousands of Americans, including in my home state of Ohio, who are dying of opioid addiction from opioid drugs carried across this open border. It's outrageous. They're killing people, JD. They are killing people.
They're killing people, Kurt, and again, they're doing it with full knowledge and with complete complete disregard of the fact that their policies are leading to this place. I mean, look, we're in a new opium war. The Chinese are making this fentanyl. They're shipping it across the southern border via the Mexican drug cartels, and the commander-in-chief of this country is just saying, ladies and gentlemen, welcome it all in. Let it happen. There's no pushback. There's no consequence. Now, here's the crazy thing. If you think about this from the perspective of an Ohio grandparent, Kurt, we have hundreds of thousands of Ohio grandparents who are taking care of grandchildren they weren't expecting to take care of because their own children died from this poison. They're getting hammered, on the one hand, by Joe Biden's border policies that are killing their children. And on the other hand, they're unable to put food on the table for their grandchildren because of Joe Biden's inflation policies. So there's this unbelievable amount of suffering that is totally self-inflicted. You look at this guy, Joe Biden, and of course, maybe his best defense is he doesn't know what he's doing. It's the people around him. But you look at what's happening by his administration, I'll say that, and it's clear that it's a ton of unnecessary suffering. You could not, if you were intentionally trying to make your own people suffer, have a set of policies worse than Joe Biden's, and yet here we are with our ridiculous commander-in-chief who seems to not know where he is, and his people and his country suffering at a level that I don't think that I've seen. I mean, I'm 37 years old, Kurt. I don't think that I've ever seen this amount of disaster and decline in the American nation in such a short period of time. If I could give the Democrats high marks on anything, it's that they're maybe destroying the country even faster than I thought they would. I didn't expect it to be good, but I didn't expect it to be quite this bad either.
Well, JT, we have 1 minute. You've gotten the endorsement of Donald Trump, and you are at least neck and neck with your competition in the polls. Say you make it through to the general. How are you going to take on Tim Ryan, the Democrat presumptive nominee?
Well, I think there are two big arguments we're going to make against Tim Ryan. First of all, this guy is a complete fraud. He says that he stands for working people, yet he's voted for Joe Biden 100% of the time. All of these policies we're talking about, he's joined along with him. Number two, Tim Ryan has been a congressman from Youngstown for 20 years as that region has been devastated. Only in politics can you fail for 20 years and expect a promotion.
Well, J.D. Vance, good luck in the primary. We'll be watching. Thank you for joining me on the Hugh Hewitt radio program. I'm guest host Kurt Schlichter. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Adios.